Welcome to Marketing Demystified, the podcast that connects the dots for business leaders to drive revenue through effective marketing strategy. We chat with marketing experts on different topics that will help you ramp up your revenue. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Marketing Demystified, the podcast, is presented to you by GrowGetter, your partner in growth marketing. And here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered with actionable tips to transform your marketing game? You're in the right place. Welcome to Marketing Demystified. I'm your host, Jenn Mancusi, CEO and co-founder of GrowGetter, your growth marketing partner. Today, we're going to talk about making the most out of your marketing and sales funnel. It's important to focus on creating a smooth experience for your potential customers and determine how to streamline your funnel. In part, that can happen through conversion rate optimization. This is such a key topic today. I'm excited to talk to world-renowned conversion rate optimization expert, Talia Wolf, founder and CEO of GetUplift, a company that helps marketers become customer-driven. You know how much we love that. She is a globally recognized conversion expert and has spoken on the topic on stages such as Google, MozCon, CTAconf, SearchLove, and many more. Welcome to the show, Talia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So glad to have you on today. I know it's very late where you are, so really appreciate you spending your evening with us today.
Yeah, I'm excited. No worries. I'm used to this time of the day, and I'm always pumped to talk about conversion optimization. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, let's jump into it then. Let's start with the basics. Can you give us your quick definition of what actually is a conversion?
Sure. So essentially, the whole role of conversion optimization is optimizing for conversions. So if you have a website and you are trying to get leads, or you're trying to sell something, or you're trying to book demos, that would be considered a conversion. So if you're trying to sell something and you make a sale, that's a conversion. Or if you're trying to grow your email newsletter and someone signs up for your email, that may be considered as a conversion for you. So conversion optimization is all about optimizing for those conversions, getting more of those sales, getting more of those free trial signups, and getting more of those email newsletter signups. Just depends on what your actual goal is. And yeah, that's what we're working around.
Amazing. So there really isn't I get this question a lot, right? There's not like a one size fits all definition of a conversion, because it really is based on what you're trying to achieve in that moment, or maybe it's based on the business model or the team that you have and the kind of activities that are going around driving conversion.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. So how do we, maybe what we need to do is pick an example. Let's say we want people to book demos on our website and fill out a lead form, right? That's a pretty standard example. How do we optimize for that conversion?
So the whole idea of conversion optimization is about the fact that you have a landing page or you have a website and people are coming to it. So let's say you have 1,000 people coming to your website every day, and out of those people, 5 people sign up and fill out your form, and you want to get to 10 people, you want to get to 15, you want to get to 20, heck, you want to get to 50. So that is your goal, right? And you are now trying to achieve that goal. In order to do that, there are 2 ways to go about it. The old school notion would be, well, if 1,000 people are coming to my website and 5 people convert, I just need to get 5,000 people to my website and more people will convert. But conversion optimization is about optimizing the page for those 1,000 people that are already coming to your website. So if you have 1,000 people coming to your website, what are the different changes that you can make in your copy, in your design, in the visuals that you've chosen, in the actual lead form that they're filling in, that can optimize for conversion? Maybe if you say something differently, people will be persuaded to sign up. Or maybe if you move your lead form above the fold, or you move it below the fold, or if you change the visual from a person looking this way and they look that way, or if you use an image of, instead of an image of your product, you use an image of your customer, maybe that will increase conversion. That's the premise of conversion optimization. It's all about making changes on your website or on a landing page that will hopefully increase conversions and convince more people to sign up and fill in your lead form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I have a bunch of follow-up questions on this
Okay,
one.
go
So
ahead.
you talked about, the example, you've got 1,000 people on your landing page and 5 people are signing up. How do I know if that's a good result or not? How do I know if I even can increase the number of people that convert? Like, what are some good benchmarks to look for? I know, again, it depends, probably scenario in some ways, but are there certain benchmarks that you're aiming for when thinking about that goal setting?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately, it's really about the industry that you're in and your capability of converting. So if your goal is you have to reach a certain revenue goal and you have to have 10 people signing up a day and not 5, then you have to do everything in your power to get there. And ultimately, it's about the budget that you're spending, whether if it's driving traffic or if it's optimizing your website. I'm an optimizer, so for me, there's always room for improvement. And with large websites that we work with, sometimes it's a very small change that can drastically increase conversions. And with smaller websites, sometimes it's a complete redesign or a complete rewrite of a page in terms of messaging that can increase those conversions. In terms of benchmarks, it really depends on what industry you're in. I know it depends is annoying, but it depends on what like industry you're in and where you are. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say you can always optimize, you can always make changes, and you always should. Even let's look at Amazon, which are not a good example because none of us are Amazon, but even Amazon optimizes every single day and runs thousands of tests. So you should be too.
Wow. I think that's a great just sort of rule of thumb to live by. Just always be optimizing. Even if you think you've got the best conversion rate possible, just always be optimizing. But so tell me about actually, how do you run those tests? Like you said, Amazon is testing and optimizing every day. So I can almost guarantee all the people who are listening in today, we're not optimizing every day. Like, what are some of the ways that we can test the changes that, like some of the ones you talked about?
So I think to talk about this, let's take a step back because none of us are Amazon. As I said before, let's take a step back and talk about the conversion optimization process. And I'm going to divide it into 3 steps. Step number 1 is you identifying the leak. That means that you would go into Google Analytics or GA4, and you would identify where the problem is. So you're in your analytics tool and you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, it's the landing page, or the drop happens on the homepage, or it happens in the shopping cart if you're e-commerce. So step number 1 is really just identifying where the problem is. And then you know, okay, this is the page that I need to be optimizing. Step number 2 is essentially making a change. And I want to put a pin in this for a second because this is going to be the biggest topic, like what changes should I even make? But step number 2 is making a change. And step number 3 is testing. And I want to talk about this for a moment because not all websites can A/B test. And I feel like when you talk about CRO, when you talk about conversion optimization, immediately everyone's like, oh, A/B testing. And for those of you who do not know what A/B testing is, A/B testing is essentially showing your audiences, dividing your audience into 2 parts and showing each of them at the same time 2 different versions of the website. So imagine that you have your homepage and you have 1,000 people coming to it, and you decide that in your A/B test, you are going to change the headline of your homepage. So you would duplicate the homepage and make exactly the same thing, but change the headline. An A/B testing tool would essentially recognize when people are coming to your website, and it would show 50% of the audience one variation and 50% the control. And it would show you in real time the results. And it will tell you, well, ultimately, the people who saw the variation actually filled out more forms, and this is your winning solution, so go for it. And it's a great way of understanding what works. You don't have to, it's not a guessing game. You test and you see in real time after a week or two, hopefully 2 weeks, what happened and what the results are, and then you can launch it. However, in order to run an A/B test, you need to have at least 300 conversions a month on your website, meaning 300 people a month need to be signing up on your website for you to actually be able to A/B test. Anything less of that, it won't be worth your time. And this doesn't mean that you shouldn't be optimizing. It just means that you can't A/B test. There are many different ways for you to optimize, which we'll get into. But going back to the question, so step number 1, you identify where the problem is. Step number 2, you decide what changes you're going to make. And step number 3, you test those. So where do you even begin? How do you know what changes to make? And this is whether you're testing or you're not, you still need to make changes. Now, there's different ways you can go about it. You could read blog posts, you could read case studies, you could go by best practices. And it's a good place to start, to just like look at what are common best practices and what are people doing in other businesses. But really, the only way to truly optimize your website is to make it about your own customers and to do real research that includes surveys and interviews and actually talking to your customers to understand what changes need to be made. And only once you've done that research, you'll be able to go back to your website and say, oh, when I spoke to people, they actually said that what's holding them back from converting and signing up is X, but I'm talking about Y. So my hypothesis is I'll take out Y, I'll substitute it for X, and then that will increase conversions. So the more research you do, the more you speak to your customers, the more you understand who they are, the better chances you have at choosing a change that will actually have an impact on your conversions. So this is a long way of saying you have to do research in order to optimize.
Yeah. I love this. And I think I want to dig in a little bit more to the types of research. I think the testing is really interesting too. And I want to talk more about alternatives to A/B testing. But before we get into that, sort of sticking with those changes that you might want to make, like when you're thinking about customer research, a lot of our audience here is in the research space, insight space. They're doing a lot of customer research, but probably more high level jobs to be done, sort of customer understanding type work, which is a really important foundation. But at what point do you actually talk to your customers about maybe your website and about what they're experiencing, and how do you conduct that type of research?
So I think, first of all, jobs to be done is incredible research. And if you're doing that, hat off to you, because that is amazing. That is super important research. And it really is a good place to start. When you want to start talking to your clients or to your colleagues and your team about optimization, the rule of thumb is just looking at, hey, we're putting in all these efforts and we're doing all this stuff and we're only getting these results, but we're trying to hit this and we're here. So in order to do that, something needs to be optimized. So I think that's like the easiest route into optimization. And actually, jobs to be done is a great starting point, in my opinion. The type of research that we run, again, it's customer surveys, it's visitor surveys, it's interviewing customers, it's review mining, it's social listening, it's competitor analysis. It's all the things that are about understanding customer intent. The goal for you is to understand that essentially anyone coming to your website is trying to solve a problem. They're not trying to buy a product. They have a problem and they need it solved, and they've come to your website to solve it. And if everything on your website is about you and your product and your solution and the technology that you offer, you are not actually helping them solve the problem. So the research that you're conducting can help you figure out what it is that they're looking for. What is the real challenge that they're facing? How do they feel right now before finding a solution? How do they want to feel after finding a solution? These are crucial questions that you can ask. And if you're doing jobs to be done, for example, you can just weave those questions in there. I know it's not technically jobs to be done, but it's a great way. If you're already interviewing people, just add those questions in there and they will help you then analyze your website. I think research really is the first place to start. And if you're having trouble convincing people around you to do research, then a lot of it really depends on how well you sell optimization and how important it is, because the guessing game is hard. And you can guess as much as you want, but ultimately it's just not going to get you the results that you want. You have to optimize based on data and science and mostly your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So we've done a good job with our research and we've got some jobs to be done, statements in place, and maybe we've even I love the concept of visitor research and visitor surveys. It's a really helpful way to kind of understand why people came to the site to begin with. Did they find what they were looking for? And like you said, kind of give ideas of what changes you might want to be testing. You did mention best practices. What are some of maybe top 2 or 3 best practices that you think about when optimizing landing pages and websites?
I'm the worst person to talk about best practices because I think they suck.
That's a good enough answer too.
I literally, my welcome sequence at GetUplift is best practices suck. Yes, I said it. So, best practices are the foundation. So if you're just getting started with optimization, you don't know what to do, cool. That's what you go ahead, start with best practices. And there's many, that are cool to think about and to utilize. The problem with best practices is that they're based on someone else's audience and someone else's best practice. And your audience is someone else and they're feeling different things and they want to achieve different things. So you don't want to be treating it like it's everything. I think that's the most important thing. And a lot of these best practices also haven't been tested. For example, a best practice would be people don't read, so don't write a lot of copy. And that's BS. Sorry, I should be saying that. But people read, they're not illiterate, right? It's just, we're not giving them reasons to read. We're not telling them why they should care. We're not making it about them. We're not. So, essentially, there's a lot of best practices out there that are incorrect because they're based on just generic stuff. But you can definitely use it as a basis. So for example, okay, yes, definitely have your call to action above the fold. Try using, more types of images that are this kind of images, or these colors are only, your call to action should only be in one color and no other element on the page should have that color. Or don't use carousels because they suck. Just don't. So basics, those are best practices. But really, just even going back to your point, when we talk about visitor surveys, right? A lot of websites, what they do is they waste these visitor surveys and they ask things like, how do you feel about our website today? Why did you come here today? Stuff like that, that isn't really going to help you optimize your website. But what you could be asking is, hey, what was going on in your life today that made you come to our website? This is a great question to ask because it invokes them thinking about the pain that drove them to the website. You can ask them, what are you currently doing to solve this problem right now? And a lot of us think, oh, maybe they're using a competitor. And many times they're doing nothing. That's a choice. That's your competitor. One of your competitors is choosing to do nothing, or they're using a spreadsheet, or I don't know, they're doing it themselves. That is also something that they're choosing to do. So these questions need to be a bit more meaningful versus, how would you rate our pricing page, or what is our best package, or stuff like that, or what almost stopped you from converting today. So I think ultimately to really figure out what changes to make, you need to ask more meaningful questions. And that helps you then go back and say, okay, I know that the reason people came to my website is because they were feeling this specific pain. So let's talk about it in our hero section of the homepage, or let's send an email about it.
Yeah. I think I sort of love the, best practices suck, that, they are based on somebody else's audience. And you just talked about how important it is to understand your audience and make sure that your content is optimized for them. So, I think there's always learnings that can happen from what other companies are doing, or, what there are certain accessibility or, layout things that you want to consider, but at the same time, making sure that it's unique to your customers is really important. Let's go back to testing for a second. I think a lot of people are probably listening and thinking, oh my gosh, 300 conversions a month. I'm not getting enough traffic to do proper A/B testing. What are some of the other ways that people can think about testing the changes that they're making on their sites?
Yeah. So if you don't have enough conversions per month to test, you can still make changes to your website and optimize them, and it just wouldn't be statistically significant in a way that you would get in an A/B test. But what you can do is something very simple: is you can do your research, you can reach a hypothesis, and then what you would do is you would look at the past 2 weeks of data of, okay, how many people came to my website, how many people converted. You would look at screen recordings and heat maps to understand user behavior and really see how people are using the website or the page that you're analyzing. And then you would launch your new design or your new changes. And you would run those for 2 weeks. And then you would look back and say, okay, comparing these 2 weeks to these 2 weeks, how did we do? Now, there's a lot of different problems and challenges here, because ultimately it's different people coming to the website. Maybe there's a high holiday that impacted it, maybe something in the news, a lot of things, or, even just changing PPC ads and trying different things can impact the conversions. So you want to try and choose the time where there's the least change, but it will definitely give you enough information to see if the changes that you made are good changes or not. Now, there's 2 other ways that you can actually test the changes. One is, I just alluded to it, it's in PPC ads. So if you're running campaigns, a great way to test is just through your ads. A lot of the changes that we make at GetUplift are messaging changes. They're deeply rooted in who our customers are, understanding them, and creating copy that really speaks to our prospects. And we like to test that with our clients in their PPC ads. So we'll test to see, okay, is this moving people? Is this interesting? Another way is via email marketing. You can actually test new messages and new ideas within your email. And if you see that these ads or these emails are leading to more engagement and more conversions, then you can move forward to also trying it on your website. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, and you can definitely change things on the website without testing them, and just see over time how they do. And I think that's the whole point. The point is constantly asking myself, am I serving my customers? Am I giving them the information that they care about most? And then essentially going live with the changes that you believe will actually speak to them and make it about them.
Yeah, for sure. So how, when you're doing any of these tests, PPC, email, website, whatever, how many variables are you testing at any given time?
The answer is going to be annoying again. It depends. It depends on how much, how many email addresses you have. We can test it on 1,000 people. We can test it on 50,000 people. And it depends on the cohort and the segment that we are, we want to actually reach. So really, the more you have, the better. But if you had more, you probably also have more traffic and more conversions on your website. So I think the rule of thumb is take everything with a grain of salt. So don't just say like, oh, I tried it on like 200 people on my email list, so it's obviously the right thing to do. But okay, I tried it on 200 people on my email list and it went well. Now I'm going to, do some ads and see how that goes. I'm also going to try and reach out to 5 people on my list, and I'm going to interview them and see what they think about this change. And the idea is that you are basically taking information from multiple places and not just being biased from one thing. So you don't have to have thousands of answers on your survey, and you don't have to send out thousands of emails or, advertise with $20,000 a month. You can just do everything in small portions, but still have enough of a variety to know that you're not just basing it on 5 people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me, in your experience, when people are trying to do conversion rate optimization, what are some of the common mistakes that they're making, and how can the rest of us, avoid them?
I think the biggest mistake that people make is that they try to change elements on a page when they're doing conversion optimization, instead of testing strategies and hypotheses. And I kind of started talking about this before, where conversion optimization isn't about changing elements on the page. It's about solving people's problems. So we know that anyone who comes to our website has some sort of problem, and we need to help them. To do that, we need to understand them better. Now, when you look at most websites that are trying to collect leads or trying to sell something, they're really making it about themselves. They're talking about the product that they're selling or the solution that they're selling, their features, the technology, everything around that. And they're not focused enough on their customers. So the biggest mistake that I'm seeing is that then they go in and they're like, oh, what should we change? And they try and change a call to action button from blue to red, or they just try and change a headline, or they try and add an exit pop-up, or they reduce a form in their field, not understanding that the changes that they need to make are far more strategic. And they need to make it a lot more about the customers. So that is like the biggest mistake that I see happening in conversion optimization. It's really just that you're like a tactic, that you're just trying different things. And, even if you did change your call to action button from red to blue, and for some magical reason you got more conversions, you're not actually learning anything from this test, and you're not actually being able to scale the knowledge and what you've learned from it to other assets on your website or in your emails or in your ads. So what you really want to be doing is testing more meaningful stuff that's really more focused on your customers. So I'd say that really that is the biggest mistake that I'm seeing.
I could so relate to that. I feel like I've totally done that in the past. Like thinking back to, big website redesigns, right? Or it's like very sort of business focused. The business feels that there needs to be a new website, and they all internally agree on new colors and new copy and new layouts, and everything is so exciting and wonderful. And then you launch it and all of the metrics tank, right? Like I have totally been there before. And that is a great like that's the outcome of having it be about the elements and not about the strategy. I think you just like articulated that so well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I cannot tell you how many websites and companies turn to me where they're like, we did a redesign. We wanted to be like super cool and refresh our brand, and we wanted it to look great. And then they launch and like everything tanks. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's, we made it about us. We're the people in the company. We're not the customer. We're talking about our own product and our own features because we're in love with our own baby, right? But again, the problem happens is that we're not making it about the customer. And the amount of websites that just relaunch with new designs just simply because, they want to keep up with the time or they want to look cool. Wow, I cannot tell you how many companies have everything tank after that. So yeah. Totally get that.
I think it was the CEO of Lucidchart who on stage at like Sastra or one of those events years ago was saying like internally there was stuff about the site that everybody hated, but every time they tried to change it, it would impact their metrics. And eventually they had to like all agree that they were just going to live with a part of the website that they all hated because it actually worked, because the customers, it was a journey that they liked, or, that just, it was more customer centric, basically.
Yeah, I do think that, just going back to best practices, even one of our clients really, they're in SaaS, and a lot of the times you see these best practices where you're like, okay, your main call to action should be to sign up, like sign up, start a free trial and get in there. And no matter how many tests we've run, we're still seeing that the best practice isn't to actually send people to the sign up page, it's to send them to the pricing page. And this is against every single best practice out there. But when you're doing it internally, no matter how many A/B tests we run, we're saying, no, people have to go to the pricing page first. They have to understand that they're looking at an entire solution and a platform, and only then can they sign up. So do more people sign up if we're sending them to the sign up page? Yes. But do more people convert to a paid customer via the sign up page? No. First they see the pricing page and then they'll convert. So it really is, it goes against everything. Everyone in design and on the creative team keeps saying, and we're all saying this, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. It should work differently. But for this specific audience, we need to send them to the pricing page. And I think that's, it says it all, right? It's just, we have to get rid of our own biases and what we think is the right way to do it and really make it about the customers.
Yeah, that's a great example, because everybody's going to say you need to shorten the click path, make it the easiest possible to sign up, but that particular customer base needs more information first. And
yeah, and I actually have an additional example that years ago we worked with a really interesting B2B brand, and they were sales led, and they had this really good landing page, but the quality of the lead that they were getting from it wasn't very good. And everyone within their marketing team and within the sales team were, really worried about this landing page, because it was supposed to be collecting these leads, and it's a very big product, and it costs a lot of money, and they really wanted qualified leads. And we went along and we were like, you know what? Yes, we'll optimize the page. So we rewrote some of the pieces on the page and we made it more specific to the customer. But one thing that we did is we added a thank you page, and everyone was like, why are we adding an additional step? And we added a thank you page that actually had a questionnaire on it. Like, hey, what are you trying to achieve? What company are you from? What's your role? When is the best time to contact you? And what we found is that the quality of the leads went up by like 90%. Because we knew that when these people filled in the form and they filled in many more details about themselves, they were warmer leads and they actually wanted to convert. So it helped the sales team and it also helped the marketing team. So, adding additional steps in the funnel actually worked, which goes against everything everyone's told, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But it goes back to just doing the math. Like you said, you can get, if you've got 1,000 people coming to your site and you have 5 people converting and you need 10, you got 2 ways to do that, right? You could optimize, or you could drive more traffic. And it's the same with, like, you could get fewer leads that are higher qualified and have the same outcome revenue wise, or whatever your sort of end goal is, if they're more qualified.
Yeah, agreed.
So how can businesses use, their data, the analytics from their pages, all different points in the funnel, to help with their CRO decisions and help with optimization?
Well, I think the most important thing is when you're looking at your data is, you want to use it for 2 things. Number one is you want to make sure it's actually correct, because many companies are tracking the wrong stuff and tracking set up incorrectly, and it happens to a lot of companies. So number one, ask yourself, get someone to audit your tracking, make sure it's tracking correctly. And then what you can do with it. So number one is you can actually see how you're doing, right? Like you can say, oh, okay, this page is doing well, this page isn't doing well. My funnel is working this way or it isn't working this way. And I think using data to inform the next steps that you take is great. And it also helps you inform how you're doing with the changes that you just made. So really you can use data all the time. But I just want to say, I think when we talk about data, the immediate thing we think about is analytics, right? We think about GA4, we think about other metrics like behavioral metrics like age, gender, geographical location, browser, device. But the other set of data that you're interested in is the human data. And that is, who am I speaking to? How are they feeling? What is the, that's data. What are the challenges that they're facing? What are the things that are preventing them from converting? How do they feel right now? How do they want to feel after finding a solution to their problem? All those things are also pieces of data that for some reason are considered like, oh, soft and uninteresting, but it is actually the key to everything. If you know the answers to, how people are feeling right now before finding a solution, you'll know exactly what to write on a landing page or on an ad. So behavioral data, super important for helping you understand where you are, how you're doing, what you need to be doing better. But qualitative data is the key to everything.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I feel like I see a lot of people make this mistake of focusing on the analytics and like maybe you've hit the benchmark in terms of your conversion rate and your traffic, and you've got all the leads that you need to drive your business model. But if it's all the wrong people or they're not ready to buy, the intent data isn't there, or, it's not matching up with your ideal customer profile, then improving those metrics or having a low lead cost or whatever actually doesn't help you at all. So it is a combination of those things. Like even hitting revenue goals isn't all the whole story, because you might end up with churn problems or unhappy customers. So that's such an important point. Like the analytics is only part of the story, and making sure you have the right people and you're solving the right problem for them is just as important, if not more.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to spend with us today. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm a big proponent of conversion rate optimization, and I appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I was very happy to be here and answer all the questions.
Amazing. Thanks everyone for listening in and joining us today. I'm going to be back with another episode in a couple of weeks where I speak with Megan Bowen of Refine Labs,